As a luxury cruise ship set sail for the Bahamas, a mysterious figure caught the attention of passengers. Who was he, and what secrets did he hold? Little did they know his story would change their lives forever. A lifelong dream. Mr. Marshall, a retired man from Florida, had always wanted to take a luxury cruise to the Bahamas. Despite the economic downturn and his retirement, he was determined to fulfill his long-term dream. On his 75th birthday, he boarded an opulent ship with top-of-the-line amenities such as swimming pools, casinos, and exquisite cuisine. However, he was the most casually dressed person on the ship, and no one wanted to talk to him. As he approached the metal detector, the alarm went off, and a security guard searched him, discovering a bunch of keys hidden in his sock. The people in line laughed and mocked him, humiliating him. After finally finding his cabin, he was met with hostility from another passenger who demanded that he leave, criticizing the cruise ship for allowing that type of person on the first-class section. The man's behavior hurt and humiliated Mr. Marshall. Fortunately, a young woman spoke up in his defense, chastising the man and reminding everyone that Mr. Marshall had every right to be on the cruise. His words rallied the other passengers, who joined in defending Mr. Marshall's right to be there. Redemption and reunion. Feeling defeated, Mr. Marshall abandoned his luggage and walked away, resigned to not finding his cabin. A kind sailor intervened, calming everyone down and leading Mr. Marshall to a comfortable chair. As he helped Mr. Marshall sit down, an old photograph fell from Mr. Marshall's pocket. The sailor retrieved it and saw a picture of Marshall's son, who was the captain of the very ship they were on. Suddenly, Marshall was no longer just a simple old man, but the father of the most important person on board, and everyone was seized by the mystery and intrigue of this revelation. With a heavy heart and tears in his eyes, Marshall stared at the old photograph in his hands. It was a picture of his son, Ken, who he had lost many years ago. Mr. Marshall's life had been a roller coaster ride filled with both joy and sorrow. Marshall's tale of love, loss, and difficult choices. Marshall had grown up in poverty, the eldest of the 3 children responsible for his siblings' upbringing. Marshall had lost count of the times he had missed school to care for his younger sister, Lily, who was always in poor health. After his father joined the military, he was sent to the war front in France and never returned, leaving the family devastated. Years later, Marshall met Jane, a beautiful and kind woman whom he thought was his princess. They fell in love and planned to get married, but tragedy struck again when Lily fell seriously ill with pneumonia. Marshall rushed her to the hospital, but Janie soon became ill as well and died after giving birth to their son, Ken. Marshall was left to raise the child alone while also dealing with the grief of losing his fiancée. As Ken grew up, Marshall's mother became increasingly erratic, making life with her a nightmare. Marshall made the difficult decision to give Ken up for adoption to a young farming couple who were heirs to a fortune and couldn't have children of their own. It was a heart-wrenching choice, but Marshall believed it was the best way to give Ken a safe and happy life. Years later, after Marshall's mother passed away, he went in search of Ken but could not find him. He blamed himself for his choices and never stopped searching for his son. Every night, Marshall prayed that Ken was safe and happy and that he would someday forgive him for the difficult choices he had to make. But for now, all he had was the old photograph in his hands, a reminder of the son he had lost but never forgotten. The miracle reunion. Marshall recently discovered that his son Ken, who had gone missing years ago, was now the captain of the same luxury cruise ship. With the help of a nonprofit group, Marshall raised funds for a premium suite ticket to be as close as possible to his son. Finally, after decades of waiting, Marshall stood in the ship's lobby, filled with emotions at the thought of finally being reunited with his son. As Marshall shared his story with those around him, they were moved to tears and reflection. Unbeknownst to Marshall, Ken was also on the ship as the captain, and he had a message to share with the passengers. He spoke of the challenges of life and the importance of forgiveness, revealing that his birth father was on board and that he had forgiven him long ago. Everyone on the ship listened in awe. As the captain's speech ended, emotions ran high and cheers filled the ship. Marshall, with tears in his eyes, met his son for the first time in over 45 years. The moment was overwhelming, and they embraced while the crowd applauded. Marshall passed on his father's keychain as a symbol of their family's legacy. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.